Okay, as I said, this is a 2018 Harley Davidson. It's the Heritage Softail. And if you remember from the first video I put up, I didn't make any other changes, I should say, other than just the mufflers. Went with the 3-inch RCX mufflers. I'll explain in a second why. But I wanted to mention that, as you can see in this video, I don't have the tour pack on. I never did wind up selling the backrest. I think that the bikes are just too new that, you know, if people are going to buy it, they're going to buy a brand new one, versus this one here that's now probably only got 10 or 15 miles on it. But I am possibly just going to keep it and just use it for short trips. Before I get to the mufflers, like I said, I got 2,500 miles on it. Already did my 1,000 mile service on it. I actually did that myself. Really wasn't that much involved with it, changing in the oils and basically just going over the bike and just torquing all the bolts. I did have to make an adjustment to the belt drive down in there. They make a tool that you just press up against the belt and it applies about 10 pounds of pressure, and the belt should only move, I think it's roughly 1/4 of an inch. Mine was getting pretty loose, so I had to make the adjustment on it. What I don't like about the Heritage Softail, the adjustments for the back wheel, I had an electric glide where the bolt that goes through the back wheel, it had 2 cams on either side, so that when you rotated the whole shaft that holds the wheel to the axle, it just lined it up so much easier. Some say they don't like that. They prefer the separate bolts, okay, you know, to where there's probably hard to see, but nope. Let's see if I can get it. See that little bolt to the right there? Not the one to the left, but the one to the right. That's the adjustment. What that does is that presses up against the axle and pushes the wheel back and forth. What I don't like about it is you have to do each side, which ain't that big of a deal. You just have to make sure that on the swing arm, the pivot point, and then the very center of the bolt, you want to measure it to make sure you got the same distance on either side. And a neat little trick that I found off of YouTube was using the you just take a piece of 1/8 inch wire rod, I guess you could say rod versus wire, and you just bend one end and it'll go right into the center of the bolt on the back, and then the center of the bolt on the swing arm. And you can just take a little rubber grommet and just slide it on the rod on one end and just line it up on one side, take it to the other side, make sure it's lined up, and then also make sure your belt's tightened up to the proper adjustment as well. But you're kind of going back and forth, making sure it's, you know, you're getting it lined up. I did it 2 ways. I measured it and then used the rod, and it would come out the same, so I was pretty happy with it. But I like the way the electric glide has it. It's got 2 cams on either side of that, and all you do is just rotate it, and there's just, you can't go wrong with it. There's, you know, just my opinion, you can't. It's much easier. Like I said, I did everything myself. The only thing I didn't have done was get the head bearings adjusted for the forks and the head bearing system up here. There's basically just a couple bearings in there where the fork assembly bolts onto the frame, and they're just tapered bearings. Now they're torqued to a specific spec, so basically all you're doing is just checking the torque on it to make sure it's tight. There was no play in it, obviously, with it being a brand new bike, but you never know. But I did buy the service manual to see how you do check it and what the specs is for that. Just about everything on the bike, I torqued it to specs. Some things, you know, it's just, I've turned enough wrenches that you kind of, you know, when it's metal on metal, you know when something's good and tight. Though you got to be careful, because, you know, it is always best to kind of go with torque specs, because you can strip a bolt, break a bolt, and it's really important when you're torquing something that is, you know, you're pressing up against a bearing, something that if you over tighten it, you can wipe out, you know, your wheel bearings in the back or the front. And of course, when you're doing engine work, torque and things are very crucial. But I didn't have the tour pack on because we just came from a road trip. I've been going out just about every weekend, and you know, I'm probably averaging maybe about 200 to 225 on the week or on Saturdays, and then 225 to 250 on Sunday, because we normally do weekend trips here. It's tough for me to get out during the week. I drive a truck during the week, and I'm just out here this evening tonight because I just put the new mufflers on and I wanted to see what they sounded like. But the overall performance of the bike, I'm pretty happy with. Lots of power. As I said in the first video, I ride two up. My wife and I always go together. Very seldom do I ride by myself unless I'm doing something like this. I'm just checking the bike out, or maybe I'll, you know, take a ride up to get gas in it or something. But I just enjoy riding the bike with my wife. She loves it, and we've just always ridden together. So the bike definitely got a good workout. Where I live in Pennsylvania, we've got some pretty good hills, I guess you could say, easterly Appalachian Mountains to conquer, and the 107 is surely a plentiful bike. You know, as far as it over the 103, I can't give it a fair comparison because I had the Electra Glide, which is a much heavier bike. But even the 103, I had the 96 on a Dyna Lowrider. They were all really good engines and plenty of power. And it's kind of like anything else. You got to find contentment in something, because it just can go on and on and on. You know, more and more and more will just either run you broke, or just you'll never be satisfied, and you know, whatever the repercussions are from never being satisfied, driving you crazy or something, I don't know. But really like the bike. One of the big things I'm just having still an issue with that I don't like is that back passenger seat. You know, as I mentioned, how this here slopes down, okay, and it's much wider than the stock version, because this is the upgraded Sundowner passenger pillion seat. It is wider, but see, then it kind of like lips up in the back here, and both my wife and I are in our early 40s, so we're not you know, skinny people. Matter of fact, we just about max out the weight on this bike when we have all our stuff on it, because when we've been going away on the weekends, we go camping and we take the tent. So I have a nice little tent that'll fit in here. I mean, these storage, you can put a lot of stuff in there. I've just got my rain suits in there now, and this is just I call it like our day blanket if we go out on just a, you know, day trip or something. We have a little picnic or something, grab something to eat to go, and, you know, sit in a park or something like that. But when I got the tour pack on, I mean, it's amazing how much stuff I can fit in that. And then I have a Saddleman soft bag that I strap to that. And so when we basically got this thing loaded down, we're pretty much maxing out the weight on the bike between the two of us. You know, my wife, you know, she's, I don't know, 140 pounds or something like that. And I'm about 220 pounds. So we basically max out the weight of this bike when we've got all our stuff on it. And like I said, it hauls no issues whatsoever as far as performance. The only thing I would say is, being you're maxing out the weight of the bike, or the rear suspension, unless you hit an extremely hard bump, which I've only hit in one, that it bottomed out, and that was a, you know, basically I got a phone call. Oh, we're still recording. Sorry about that there, just had a phone call interrupt. But I've only hit one pothole that we bottomed out on it, and it actually rode through that pretty decent, a lot better than what I thought it was going to. But being that we are maxing out the weight of the bike, you get like a floating feeling in the back end. You kind of get like a bouncing up and down, you know what I mean? I can't stiffen it up anymore. I've got it just about maxed out. I think the only thing that I can do is to possibly check in to see about getting a stiffer spring for that mono shock. Maybe have to look into a progressive shock. But a lot of the problem is we've got more weight on the rear end of the bike than I would like to have between all our stuff we take for camping and clothes and whatnot, so it's just one of those, probably not too much I can do about it. But I am going to look into a maybe a stiffer shock there. But so yeah, overall pretty happy with that. I will let you know if what I tried to do was, one of the things that I like about the older Heritage is I like the passenger seat, because the back seat on the old Heritage, it was actually a little bit wider than this. This one comes in at 11¼ wide, and a stock passenger seat on a 2009 to 2017 is 12 inches. So you get about 3/4 more inch of width on the back. Okay, but what's nice about it is, instead of it sloping down, it comes straight out and then drops down, and it creates almost like a 90-degree angle, which is nice for back support. So I just had it in my mind that I was going to see if that seat would fit from a 2009 to 2017. And if you call a Harley dealer, if something's in the computer says it don't fit, then that's just what they go with. You know, they're not going to experiment. They're not going to, you know, they just don't know. They got to go with what actually the computer says, what makes sense. But after looking at some of what I did is I went on to eBay and I looked at a passenger seat from my 2009 to 2017. And just when I looked at it, the underneath, the way it mounts, it just has a thumb screw in the back like most back seats. And then in the front, there's basically like two molded like plastic forks that just slide under these. They're like stub bolts that hold the front seat on. You just like you tighten them down with your thumbs, and then there's like a groove in it to accept these, you know, like a tongue fork, I guess you could say. There's two on each side underneath that seat there. Well, they look just about identical from the older Heritage, and I just thought, boy, I wonder if that would work. So what I did is I went to my local Harley Davidson dealer to see if they had an older Heritage there, and they did. They had a 2016. So what he did is he let me actually take the passenger seat off the 16 and put it onto the my bike to see if it would fit. And believe it or not, it did fit. There was a guy in there saying, oh buddy, it's not going to fit, it's not going to fit. But I just had a hunch, and I thought, you know what, why not just find out? Because, you know, I just thought that would be a better seat, because it would give me more of a lumbar support, and it would just be a little bit wider for my wife, so that see, because this just kind of comes up, and you know, you're basically relying on this little spot. And you know, unless you're, you know, Popeye's wife, Olive Oil, you know, that seat just ain't gonna accommodate a normal buttocks. But so it did work, and they wanted $225 for a brand new one. So what I did is I went to eBay and I bought one used for $75, put it on the bike. It fit just as I thought, and I liked the way it looked. I mean, I just like that way the older seats look. It just has a nice, I don't know, I just don't like the way this even looks, the way it drops down. It looks sloppy to me, but it just could be me. You know, sometimes we all have our little quirks, and that's one of mine there. So so yeah, we put it on, and unfortunately the wife said it just was like as hard as a rock. She didn't like it whatsoever. So we wind up sending it back, and I put this back on here, and because this one here, we can easily do the 200 to 250 miles and more, and she's not really complaining about it. It's just if we were to try to do 400 or 500 miles in one day, you know, then she's starting to be hurting towards the end, and even I'm starting to by, you know, after 400 miles, you know, I'm starting to kind of really feel it too. But my next thing is to try out the Harley hammock, which is a one-piece seat, but it's like $500. And I'm going to go down to the dealer and try that out. They have a demo there, and we'll check that out. So other than that, like I said, I really like the bike. The more I see this bike, or the more I see an older Heritage, the one thing that I do like about the older Heritage, though it's a, you know, a matter of give and take, is I like the wider stance, I guess, of the older Heritage. You know, they just look beefier, like they're just more for your money, where these new softails, they lightened them up, they made them a little bit smaller. I really like the looks of the older ones. You know, if I could have got an older one blacked out just like this in this color scheme, boy, I'd just be in heaven. But on the other hand, I really, I did ride an older one once, and I didn't ride it that long, but I do know the difference between the way the new ones ride and the old ones ride. And I guess, you know, I don't want to give up the ride, because I came from electric glide, which, you know, is, you know, you can't get much better for touring. And this here is just, it's not on the highways, it's not, you know, quite as comfortable. I mean, you know, it's not, being it's lighter, you know, the trucks kind of can push around a little bit more. But I'm actually really pleased with it. A lot better than what I thought it was going to be. I was a little bit nervous making the decision, because I always wanted a Heritage, but I just never was really the big fan of all the chrome and the kind of like the throwback look. I mean, I didn't mind the throwback look, but you know, I just wasn't really too big into the too much of the chrome. But like I said, you know, some of the things, I guess it's still kind of, you know, on the older Heritage, you got a wider seat, you got a bigger and wider backrest. You just felt like you were getting more for your money. Just some of the things they did, I guess, to lighten the bike up. I'd rather have the extra 32 pounds, you know. I mean, I'd like to have a 6-gallon tank versus the 5. You know, that could just be for me coming from a touring bike. You know, it was nice having that 6 gallons. But like I said, overall, it runs great, no issues. You know, so yeah, but let me just stop it here and get back to you. I'll start it up and let you hear the, these are the RCX. It's hard to see that because it's black. 3-inch mufflers, and it's got the black tips on it. When you buy them, they got multiple tips. I'm not much for like fancy. I'm kind of a plain Jane kind of guy, more of that that sleeper mode look, if you know what I'm saying. So that's what it looks like. What's nice about it is, if you remember when I bought the bike, because somebody asked, does it come with the black pipes? Well, basically those are just pipes, and then they're just shields over them, just like the chrome ones are. Well, I opted for the black ones, and if you remember, I had put in the black ones over the stock mufflers, but then just the very tip of the stock exhaust stuck out and was chrome, and I just didn't like that look. And the only reason why I bought mufflers was because I was looking for that typical, I call it like a cam lobing idle sound that, you know, Harley's known for. I'm not really too concerned with going down the road, because you got the wind in your face, and as far as hearing the mufflers, you know, the mufflers are behind you, so you're not really hearing them for what they really are. And as far as trying to impress people, I, you know, really don't care. I more or less just wanted that cam loping sound that the Harley does. And once this thing warms up, you know, you kind of get that. It's tough when you're picking mufflers, obviously everybody knows, because of the you know, how do you make a decision one over one? Because one guy, you know, it sounds good, then you do another video, and depending upon what his phone sounds like, it may not sound so good. And one thing I don't like to go by is anybody that turns the mufflers on or starts the bike up in the garage, because that's not really a true sound, you know. You just got too much of the I guess the bass effect from the you know, the walls in there versus having it outside. So this will be an outside test. And but yeah, they were pretty easy. What I like about it is, being they were black, I don't have to put them black shields on, and they really wouldn't look right. Because what I liked about, reason why I chose these were because it just has more of a cleaner line. If I were to put that black muffler shield on, number one, they were for 3.5-inch mufflers. These are only 3s, so when you would look behind like this, if the shield was on there, there'd be a, you know, a 1/2-inch gap there, and it just, I don't know, probably would look kind of cheesy. As far as the finish, it's about the only thing I don't like about black. If something's power coated, it's pretty durable, but these like muffler shields, it don't take too much to nick them up, and they kind of mark. You can see where my wife, right here, you probably can't see it, but there's some little markings, not so much like it's breaking through the paint, but it just kind of marks up a little bit easier. Chrome just seems to, you know, it's obviously more durable. One of the things I don't like about, even though the casing is powder coated, but just I'm starting to see like some rub marks from my boots, you know, just from when my boot hits the case sometimes, you know, from shifting, or, you know, my wife, when she got her foot on here, you know, her toes kind of hitting the case there. So you're starting to see rub marks where in the chrome, at least, you know, I never noticed that on any of my other bikes there. As far as the finish, I'm not really too thrilled with the finish. I mean, these didn't really take too much. I mean, I got a little nick right here, and somewhere else there was a little marking. Actually, I was able to get it pushed up far enough under the front shield there, but overall, I mean, I like the way they sound. They're actually pretty darn deep. I mean, I'm pretty sure the phone ain't gonna do justice. Like I said, I wasn't concerned with what it sounded like, you know, revving up or racing down the road, which, you know, they just got a nice deep, really deep tone. I just was I more or less just bought them because I wanted that idling sound. I like listening to the bike when it idles, you know, a nice slow idle, like you know, basically how they used to sound, where nowadays the way they come stock, they almost sound like a Honda Shadow, you know, 650. And soon as I started this up, you can just feel like that motor just, boy, it almost like it was screaming out, hey, thank you. You know, just a big difference. But it still feels pretty torquey. Like I said, these are just slip-on mufflers, so no adjustments been made. I don't plan on doing anything because I like things stock. I'm not really much for souping up or whatnot. The only thing I would do is I wouldn't mind getting a fuel tuner just to make sure that I'm getting a bike to the best performance that it can, you know, more for the longevity. I ain't worried about going any faster. I mean, you know, this is good enough for me, and I like the stock look of the air cleaner, so I'm not looking to put anything different on. So yeah, this will probably be the way it is. I really wanted to go with the Vance & Hines. The Vance & Hines is the sound that I just like, but they didn't make a black muffler slip-on yet. They did make the slash cuts, but they only came chrome, and I just didn't want chrome. And you know, if they ever come black, maybe or maybe not, I don't know. I'm pretty happy with these. I got these at West End Motorsports in Pennsylvania here, and they were like 341 bucks, so not too much shelled out compared to what more you can spend. I was more fixed on the Reinhardts. I like them, but like once again, they came chrome, and I didn't really want to put that shield on. And I did look in this tab Performance. I thought about them, but they were a 3.5 inch, and I kind of like the smaller pipes. It just gives it a, I don't know, I just like the look of the skinnier pipe here versus the big fat mufflers on it. So, but all right, well, we'll start it up here and let you listen to it. Always make sure you're in neutral. Actually, I'm not sure if it'll start in gear, but I don't want to find out. Into the mufflers called the Cobra Neighbor Haters, and these might come in pretty darn close. I don't think the phone's going to do justice. But it has a much better loping sound of a 2-cylinder Harley engine than the stock ones do, by all means. But in person, they're just, when I first started it up, it just, you know, you ever heard I had a shotgun go off near you or shoot a shotgun? It's almost like somebody just ponded on your chest. I mean, they're just, you know, just the bass effect from it. That's what these kind of sound like. So that's basically it. Yeah, so I thought